Ambassador Sikri, what impact do do events like the International Yoga Day at the UN headquarters have in taking India's soft power, or taking India to the world, Ambassador Sikri?
Absolutely fantastic. I think that the yoga demonstration at the UN headquarters in New York this morning was an outstanding example of the successful soft power projection through yoga that India has achieved over the last 9 years. This is the 9th International Day of Yoga. It was one of the first initiatives of Prime Minister Modi way back in 2014. It received support at that time, an enormous number of co-sponsorships. But today we saw in practice that the people who had co-sponsored 135 nations actually came there and broke the world record. There was the largest number of different nationalities doing yoga at the same time. And what was absolutely amazing was that the people who were doing yoga were clearly people who had studied it. They were not just, trying to hurriedly imitate the instructor, but they knew what they were doing. And I think it's wonderful that the instructor, Annalise, whom you interviewed just now, she's from the Art of Living, which is shows that the excellent work that the Art of Living has been doing. She explained yoga on Indian terms. She did not try in any way to westernize the presentation of yoga. She used the correct explanations, the correct nomenclature for the asanas, the Makar asana, the Shavasana, the pranayam, the lom vilom, all that she explained it so beautifully, and the different kinds of breathing, the Kapalbhati, the Brahmari, all that. So it was quite tremendous that she was very careful that India's civilizational heritage should be presented in the correct light, in the way it is, in order that countries of the world should benefit from it. So I think it was a great example, and I think that Prime Minister Modi's own brief presentation there was remarkable, because he said there is no copyright, there is no patent, there is no royalty on yoga. The world can benefit, and it's for humanity, because you come to peace with your inner self when you do yoga. So it brings peace to individuals and to the world. And you begin with Om. She did the chanting of Om. You end with Shanti, asking for peace for everybody, peace, good health, well-being for everybody. She did that. And one could see how the people who were there, very large numbers, were absorbing it and enjoying it.
Very interesting. Yes, you're absolutely right. Even the UNGA president, the way he spoke of yoga, the fact that his daughter is a practitioner, and he said he's learning so much about how the Indian philosophy is all about living in harmony with the environment. General Sharma, India's soft power, India's philosophy, India's heritage on the world stage, does it bring any advantage to India in any which way?
So, firstly, I agree. This was a great event. It's one of the greatest events that we have seen in a lifetime. I mean, despite all the addresses that Prime Minister Modi has been doing to the diaspora, this was one great event. And, it stood out in a manner that, it's ununderstandable. To us, it was goose pimples to see the kind of response that we got in United Nations, and salutations to the organizers to have organized it in that manner. Now, having said that, sometimes you go back to what President Xi has been saying over a period of time, and he, of course, you can't avoid not talking about him.
Yes.
And he said China should be a likable country. People should like us. So he has to work to be liked, despite the fact that he has maximum trade with so many countries of the world. He still is not a liked country. They are well understood that people may be dependent on China, but they are not a liked country.
You're being very polite. You're being very polite. They are being intensely disliked, sir. The US president, called him a dictator. Their debt trap diplomacy, their Belt and Road Initiative. Ambassador Sikri, and I'll come back to you, General, because I want to take this point forward in a moment from now. What China did to the world post-COVID, I'm not even saying COVID originated in that Wuhan lab, as many believe, but the way they behaved, they profited from the world's misery. So clearly, Xi Jinping cannot expect the world to like China.
Absolutely, and I think that China has to realize they have done it to themselves. It's not that the world has turned against them. In fact, just a few years ago, everybody was falling over themselves to invest in China and to, do what China is asking them to do, taking more and more money. Even when they were not getting profit, they were pouring more money. And then along comes President Xi Jinping, and he decides on a wolf warrior diplomacy.
Yes.
He decides aggression. Today he's saying love me, but a few months ago, a year or so ago, he was saying wolf warrior divorce. Demand what you want. And then his greatest initiative, the Belt and Road Initiative, was his initiative, his personal initiative. But it turns out it was an initiative to grab money from the rest of the world, not to help the rest of the world. So he goes to developing countries and gives them projects they don't really need at very high prices, and then demands the money back. And if you don't give the money back, then something or the other of yours is taken away, like Hambantota port was taken away,
Yes, from
or
Sri Lanka,
on 1990s to China. So I think that China needs a lot of yoga to calm them down, and for them to realize that if they want to be loved by the world, they have to give love to the world, and they haven't learned how to do that yet. And it's quite amazing, as you correctly pointed out, that you had Secretary of State Anthony Blinken in China. He met Xi Jinping, and they were hopeful that now this is a turning point. But there goes President Biden the very next day calling President Xi Jinping a dictator. And now it's, but then you've also seen Wang Yi, the former foreign minister of China, today the boss of foreign affairs in the Communist Party hierarchy. He's written an article in the Global Times, and he is telling USA not to use India as a bulwark against China.
Yes.
They are again interpreting the world in their light, not looking that India and USA are friends for mutual benefit and for mutual understanding, and they have a friendship among them. They
Yes.
have built a mutually beneficial friendship.